call the meeting to order. Item 2, roll call.
Chairperson Geigo.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Cordes.
Here.
Members Anderson. Here. Kirsten.
Here.
Simons. Here. Ronan.
Here.
And Leonard.
Okay, item 3, pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 4, a moment of reflection or prayer. Does anyone have anything prepared? Go for it, Lynn.
It's your last one, but I just have a Bible verse that I thought was good. John 16, verse 33. I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Amen.
Okay, item 5, conflict of interest. None tonight, okay. Item 6, approve agenda. Number, are we just talking this top agenda or the whole sheet, the whole thing? The top 4.
Yeah, I think it's a whole thing. It's all of it.
Okay, cause I kinda trying to, sorry.
Try to do the whole thing, can we?
What do you
Because
need to-
we can't adjourn then if we're gonna do the whole thing.
That's true too, yeah.
Okay,
So it'll just be items 1 through 14 is what we're approving right
we're
now.
working on right now.
Yep.
For the approved agenda, yes.
Yep.
And
So-
this is the agenda where, I'm recommending that we amend that agenda to add the resignation.
But we should also, because when you go into the next one, we don't have approved agenda, is the only thing.
Is it too late to just add that before we start the next one or not? Can we just, or not?
To the second, just add approve agenda to that second portion.
Well, I mean, do we need to do that now or can we do that before we start the next meeting?
That we could do it before we start the next meeting, couldn't we? What's that?
Or you make any amendments on this portion that is needed throughout the meeting and go, you don't. I don't know.
How about, I'll make a motion that we add resignation under 13 on the first meeting and add under superintendent will open the meeting to approve the agenda of the second meeting. That way it's in the minutes, it's not something.
Okay. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, item 7, new business. None?
Can I make a comment here? Is that
Sure.
okay? But just because this is new business. Going through this, and I'm just kind of speaking to you guys and to the board, going through this agenda, a lot of the times we talk about how long our meetings are and how they get lengthy for no reason. And one of the things that going through this, I noticed, and I just wanna make a couple comments on things that as a board we've discussed that we seem to go over is, and I'm not blaming anybody for this, but I just think it's something that we as a board should be aware of. Live ticket, we discussed that a few years ago, and one of the reasons that we had discussed it is the amount of money that we were gonna pay to live ticket, and we had voted not to go forward as with paying that money to live ticket. And at the last meeting, Lex had made the comment that we have been doing live ticket for 3 years. So that's hard for me as a board member when we've discussed something previously and a decision has been made, but then, and I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying, then it happens when the board has said no, and it goes forward and we're doing it anyways. And I'm not saying any of it's bad or good, but I'm just saying as a board, when we make a decision, we need to have follow through instead of coming back and being like, well, we discussed this, why is this happening? And kind of the same thing, the other one on here was the SRO. We discussed that for at least 4 years, maybe even 5. And here we are still discussing it. And Pam, you know, you don't have that history, but as a board member, I think that's something that we should be aware of when we make a decision. We stick with it instead of continuing to like discuss these things. And the one other thing, you know, you talk about the technology thing. We've discussed emails in the past, and having our own emails is just easier because that's the quickest way for discussion. So that's the only thing I wanted to comment on. Moving forward as a board, I think it's something that we need to be aware of, that we as a board should be a little more, I guess, strict on when you make a decision, we hold ourselves to that and not continuing to always bring it up and rehash it over and over. I think that makes us unproductive as a board.
Well, the reason that the SRO is on there is because Marty Heater requested it, and so that's why that's on there. He made the request, and so I put him on the agenda. The live ticket in the huddle conversation, I met with Mr. Heathershaw the next day because I was confused on the whole process, and that's why I asked him if he would present today, so that we can be more clear on what it is that we're doing and why there is a change.
Right, and I don't think that's Lex's. I think it just was not, I feel like it wasn't communicated to him probably in discussions. I mean, there was a firm decision made on that, and that's why I kind of, when he said that, I was like, well, this hasn't ever been discussed, and we already made that decision, and that's why I questioned it. And as far as Marty coming to the meeting, he's been here twice, and so that's where I'm like, he's on here again, you know what I mean? It's like it's a rehash of the same thing, and I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying as a board, we kind of need to.
I think she's just saying we made decisions here recently, they weren't long, you know, so I think she's just saying,
Well, there comes a point
general, we can
where
kinda go
if
forward.
a community member makes a request
Be on the agenda.
to be on the agenda.
Oh,
But he's been on the agendas, was my point. I mean, it
And-
hasn't been.
And,
what,
and
2,
we
3
have a
months.
right, to limit his presentation.
I just feel like that would maybe have been appropriate for open comment versus putting him on the agenda again.
Well, and I don't even think you're talking about Marty in general, I think you're just
No.
saying as a board overall, I think is
Yeah.
what you're saying, so
Right. Yeah.
just something to go
If I
forward
could
with.
just respond to that though, if you're referring back to 4 or 5 years ago, there's been some change on the board
Oh,
during
I
that
agree.
time. So I don't know that you can hold that just cause the decision was made back then.
But we
You
just.
can't ever bring it up again because you have
No.
new board members, you know, so.
Right, I just think it's something that we've been discussing it for 5 years, and there's been changes made, and I mean, it's just been lately in the last 3 or 4 months, that's where and I
No,
don't
I'm
think
talking
that's.
about the live ticket thing.
Yeah, I hadn't been a part of
Uh-huh.
that.
I was referring. to
Right,
that.
and that's why I was surprised, I'm not surprised, but I just kinda didn't know, and so that's why I questioned it. It's like, well, if that was gonna happen, then it should've been brought back to the board by our superintendent.
And we hope that will change, that information will get out at least more,
Yeah.
And
more
the-
than the day of,
Yeah.
or a week before.
And that goes back to the email, okay? If we need to have, for open communications, I would really appreciate it if the board took on the state emails because of liability in the event of an emergency or anything. I need to have the confidence that when I send out information, it goes to your state email account, and I feel comfortable that no one else has access to it. It's about risk management and being
Yeah,
proactive about it.
Right, but you're talking about putting it on people's own personal devices, so that's no different. We as a board should have our expectations, and that's where, that's my personal device, so it isn't any different than my own email being on there. see what I'm saying? It's
But
not.
it's password protected by the state, okay, and it's controlled by the state. It's no different than businesses and other schools and other, I mean, you're protecting the information, that could be compromised.
But it's on your personal device. is
Yes,
what's
but there's
going,
also
so that's-
there's another password to it, and it's state controlled. And I'm just asking, you know, I would appreciate, truly appreciate compliance to this. Because I've had to experience dealing with personal emails. That's all I'm asking. And so if we can communicate, and I can send out an email that here's an emergency, and if that emergency gets compromised, we have a liability issue, and it's much easier to make the decision now than have to clean up the situation later.
But see that, you're kinda double speaking because you're saying it's gonna be on your personal device. Once you put an email on somebody's personal device, it's no longer confidential. It's up to that person to keep that confidential. So that erases that, whether you agree with me or not, it does. And so if you wanna communicate with your board, the best way to do it is the way they communicate. And as far as confidentiality, that requires a different level. That requires in person. You can't expect somebody to have that on their phone. My phone could be laying there and anybody could pick it up if I don't have it password protected, and there it is.
Well, I
Is this
would
something we
hope-
should do down here? Should we discuss it? and get
Yeah,
it down
this
to
is
there?
kind of
I
not.
just thought,
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
would,
It wasn't my point. My point was just kind of going back to our board yeah, discussions and previous decisions, I guess.
Okay,
okay.
item 8, we ready to go to item 8 then? Approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 9, approve fiscal year 21 impact aid transfer. Amy?
Yes, thank you.
Explanation for that?
I'm not positive if I explained that in the emails, but, I am requesting that you, we do a transfer of $250,000 from our general fund into our impact aid. And as you all know, we, deficit spend in our general fund, and then we always do a large transfer at the end of the fiscal year to compensate for that deficit. So, with expenses right now, what we would absolutely, the minimum would be $161,089.43. However, I'm asking for a transfer of $250,000 in case there is any unexpected expenditures. I don't foresee that happening in that amount, but we always try to do more just so we never have to do 2 transfers. And budgeted for this line item was $767,000, so we're quite a bit underneath what was budgeted, so.
I'll make the motion that we transfer $250,000.
second.
Just so I understand though, on the transfer then, what is the reason we wouldn't wanna do 2 transfers? Is it a lengthy process or?
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's an accounting thing that is just more lengthy, and then, but, I'd be willing to do it if that's.
No, that's fine, I just thought. Good to know that.
What happens to the extra money?
It just stays in our fund balance.
The general fund?
In the impact aid fund. So if you would look on that financial statement, you'll see in the, when I give you the one for June for next month, or actually it would be for, I'll send you out another June one, cause this transaction will happen in June. Because that's the fiscal year ending. You'll see an expenditure that goes from out of impact aid in a revenue of into general fund. It's just an accounting practice.
Any more discussion or questions? favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 10, approve resolution 21-8, fiscal year 21 supplemental budget.
For those that did, and I gave it to you,
Yeah, you need one back.
for you to sign,
Yep.
once it's approved, is we do need to do a resolution, for a supplement, or a budget supplement cause we overspent in our food service fund and our WASP fund. And technically by codified law, it's not required for us to have to do a budget supplement for those two types of funds. It's just the governmental funds that they require it. But, in speaking with with the auditor and other business managers, it is good practice to just be transparent with our public to continue to do a budget supplement, so they know that the school did overspend in their food service and their WASP fund.
Just out of curiosity, how did we overspend in food service?
Food service, a lot of that was actually because of the COVID. We had to go from bulk serving to single serving. So like, for instance, like, we used to buy grapes, we had to buy them in individual packets, a lot of that kind of stuff. We did also have to have an extra person in the line who was serving.
I'm just curious, cause I know I had different things for different things.
Yep, and, one thing that's a little bit confusing within the food service funds is we get commodities, what's actually free food, but we have to, for accounting practices, count that as expenditure and a revenue. Well, we don't have to do it as a revenue, a budget supplement for a revenue, but you have to do it for expenditure. So there's more spent, even though nothing came out of our fund, or out of our fund balance for those increased commodities. But, for WASP, we only had to do one for $676, but I did up it to $3,000 just in case there's any extra expenses that come. And then for food service, we were overspent by $26,568.53. And I recommend that budget supplement of $43,000 for food service and WASP $3,000.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-8.
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 11, approve fiscal year 21 audit engagement letter.
Well, that's me again. We will be having an audit in probably October timeframe. We usually do it in August, but, just with some time constraints, personally, I pushed it back a little bit. It doesn't have to be done until before January, so. But we're going through the same, auditor that we have used since I've been here. ELO, the cost to do the audit is $13,500. And this does not require them to do a single audit. A single audit is an additional audit we would have to do if we spent over $750,000 in federal funds. And right now, we're just below that. So, if for any circumstance, if we do have to do a single audit, we'll have to reapprove this, engagement letter. But, I don't foresee that happening. So, it'd just be a normal audit. In the future, with all this COVID money that we're getting in, and if we do end up using it, we'll probably have to do a single audit in the future. Cause we're kind of at that threshold of $750,000 in federal funds that we spend. And we'll probably have to go over that. When we built the complex, we had to do a single audit because we used a lot of impact aid money for that and those type of circumstances, so. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, this is a lot of,
I'll make a motion that we
points.
ELO.
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item 12, open forum.
Nope, same.
Nothing there, okay. Item 13, Ryan.
Yep. Alright, I'll just read my letter. After making the decision to assume the role as the head boys basketball coach, I decided to step away from my role as a school board member. I'm extremely grateful and humbled to have served as school board member for the past several years. We are undoubtedly blessed as a community to have individuals such as yourselves leading our school in a direction that is best for all stakeholders. I look forward to the opportunity of helping our students prosper in all areas of their lives, although now it will be from a different role than previously held. I appreciate all the hard work the staff, the administration, and the school board has put into our amazing school system, and I just, really appreciate getting to, know all you guys a little bit better, and hope that you guys know that you can call me anytime, but I think you're in good hands with Ridge and Corey coming on, so I guess I'll leave it at that, and Tandy also, so, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ryan, for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
So, this is on my ignorance, cause I haven't been around when a school board member, and we need a motion to accept that then.
I would make a motion with regret to accept Ryan's resignation.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Thanks, Ryan, appreciate everything.
You bet.
Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, before we move on, are we gonna approve the appointment now or in the next?
I think you should appoint it now.
Yeah, it'd probably be good to do it now.
Okay. So do we have a motion for an appointment?
I'd make a motion that we appoint Rich Sandel to take the position for Ryan, fill the year with Ryan.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 14, adjourn. Okay, so now we'll start our reorganization board meeting. We need to wait a few